Hey guys, Coach Gaglione here. I'm gonna start. I've been getting a lot of questions on strength and conditioning topics, so I figured I'd just make a video. So instead of just shooting an email back to the person, some of the other fans and some of the other viewers can benefit from my answer, because I know there's a lot of the same questions out there. So I got an email from a guy who trains Strongman, and he wanted to know how to use max effort method and what some exercises that would be good to utilize. He said he's kind of getting kind of stagnant with just like the basic squat and deadlift variations. He's tried a couple other things. He wanted some ideas on how he can use the max effort method to improve his strongman. And the email says, I'm burned out with traditional max effort work variations like squats and deads. Do you have any other off-the-wall ideas for max effort? I do a max set of 3, a lower body day, that's fine. I've been doing Zercher squat, front squats, Anderson front squat, snatch grip deads, rack deads, etc. Okay, so a couple of things I just want to point out before I get into some of the other ideas, because there's a lot of ways we can go with this question, but that's one of the beauties of the conjugate system, is that you can rotate exercise pretty frequently and still make progress. So there are literally hundreds and hundreds of variations that you could do with the squat and deadlift, especially if you utilize accommodating resistance, different box heights, different stance widths, different grip widths for benching and stuff like that, and overhead pressing. So you really should never run out of options. Okay, especially if you don't have access to chains. Bands are pretty inexpensive. Get a couple of sets of bands, because you could do bands from the bottom, so just the squatting and deadlifting versus bands, benching and overhead pressing versus bands, reverse band benching, reverse band squats, reverse band deadlifts, reverse band front squats against bands. So I mean, there's literally, if you get a couple of sets of bands, you're going to just multiply the amount of max effort exercises you can do. You can do pin pulls versus bands. You could do block pulls versus bands. You could do deficit deadlifts versus bands. So I would definitely recommend getting a couple of sets of bands. And that's just going to allow you to have a lot more options in your max effort training. For strongman, I know you kind of focus on the lower body, but I'll go into upper body a little bit too, and I'll be the first to say I'm not an expert in strongman training. Powerlifting is more my bread and butter, but I have a lot of friends who compete in strongman as well. I'll give you some insight from my buddy Mike Jenkins, who hopefully you guys know who he is, but he just won the Arnold, and knock on wood, I think he's going to win the world's strongest man this year as long as he's healthy. So we'll be on the lookout for him for World's Strongest Man this year. But one of the things I know, he does a lot of front-loaded squats. So I think all types of front squat variations. I know personally with him, he usually does front squats to a box. So front squats are definitely all types of front squats I would utilize. I think it's going to have a little bit greater of a carryover to, unless in a rare case, sometimes you'll see like a squat lift in a strongman event. But the front-loaded squats are great. Zercher squats are great. You could do a Zercher from a deadlift. So, you could do a Zercher from a rack. So you could do, you could work more on the hip dominant motion and do like a Zercher deadlift or a Zercher good morning type movement, where your hips, keeping the hips nice and high and getting the hips through like a deadlift. Or you could set the pins lower and use your quads a bit more and drop your ass lower and then do it more like a squatting motion. You could do that from pins as well. We like to utilize the Elite Fitness. It's kind of a zigzag bar for Zerchers. It kind of fits really nice in the crooks of your elbow. Excuse me. If you don't have access to that, which is fine, I would just recommend doing some type of padding, or also using a thick bar for your Zerchers. So the thicker the bar, it's just going to have more surface area, so it's just going to be a little bit easier on your elbows and joints. So I would definitely recommend that. So front-loaded squats, all types of front squats from pins, pause front squats versus bands. Zercher squat from pins, Anderson Zercher squats, regular Anderson squats, reverse band squats. That's a ton right there. As far as deadlifting, I think I just did some deficit deadlifts the other day. I haven't done them in a while, but those suck. I think those are really good for building up your lower back, and that's going to help carry over for stones and stuff like that. You could just stand on a 45-pound plate, and then another week you could stand on a 100-pound plate or two 45s. I wouldn't go more than like a 2 or 3 inch deficit. I think it's just too crazy. But and you could do that sumo stance. You could do a conventional stance. So again, there's other options there. You could do that versus bands. A good Jesse Burdick, I've seen him do this a lot. You could just literally put the band under the plate. It's a great way to set up the deficit deadlifts versus bands. So let me know if you need a visual on that, but that's a great way. So you could do reverse band deficit deadlifts. You could do reverse band deadlifts. You could do rack pulls versus bands, block pulls. So any type of 18-inch deadlifts, like a rack pull or a block pull, is a great training tool for strongman, because sometimes it actually is an event. And you could do the same, mix it up with the axle sometimes. Go double overhand with the axle. It's going to work your grip. And like I said, something like a snatch grip deadlift is another great variation, because it's going to increase the time under tension because it's a longer range of motion, and it's going to work your grip a lot, especially if you go double overhand. So those would be my top deadlifting movements. And other thing, I would say sometimes don't be afraid to use a movement like a clean, like a max effort axle clean, just a clean itself. A max effort log clean. Get really strong at that cleaning motion. Don't just use it for the reps, because the stronger your clean is going to be, the easier the press is going to be, because you're not wasting as much energy. So definitely utilize cleans as a max effort movement for both the log and the axle in your training. I think that'd be great. And same thing, you could also have a double overhand record for the axle and an over-under record for the axle. So that's another movements right there. Those would be, I would kind of stick, the squatting and the deadlifting is going to be the foundation of your upper body training. For lower body training. For upper body, the biggest difference between strongman and powerlifting is you have to include some strict overhead pressing in there. I know that, again, going back to Mike Jenkins, he always has a strict pressing day, and then he has kind of a dynamic day where he's going to be doing either more repetitions or just going for straight up power. But he always includes strict pressing every week. And the other thing he likes to do is he'll do some type of either Swiss bar or straight bar floor press. He doesn't really do any full range of motion benching anymore, but the floor press really helps his tricep strength, and it helps increase his lockout for his overhead press, he says. And then another thing is just doing inclines. Incline press is going to build up the shoulders and the pecs, so you could overhead press a little bit more as well. So strict pressing, floor pressing, all types of grips. You could do floor pressing and strict pressing versus bands. You could do reverse bands. You could do with a pause. That's what I would do for max effort work for upper body. And you could utilize a log, an axle, straight bar, Swiss bar. Again, all different types of bars for that. So definitely utilize a log for the strict pressing, and axle would be like your main two. And then you could use a straight bar as well. And do the same thing with the floor press. You could incline, one of my favorite with my buddies does the incline press with the log. That's a great assistant movement for to build up your shoulders and pecs for overhead pressing. That would be it for that. So that would be how I would use the max effort method for strongman. You could, like you said, you use triples. That's fine. Sometimes do triples, sometimes do doubles, sometimes do multiple sets of singles. Switch it up. Always make sure that you're not just practicing the events. It is critical that you get strong in the weight room as well, and you keep developing that strength. So it looks like this is a really, really long question, so I'm going to cut it here, but I hope this answers your question, my man. And if you need anything else, just let me know, and I'll talk to you soon. Later.